Ethan Mallory, Olympic gold medalist and national hero, went from celebrated champion to headline-grabbing fugitive in a single night, tearing through city streets at 126 miles per hour, police in hot pursuit, and the world watching in disbelief as his perfect life spiraled into chaos. Ethan Mallory's rise to fame had been nothing short of extraordinary. From the small suburban streets of Oregon to the grand stages of the Olympic Games, his journey had inspired millions. As a teenager, he was quiet and intensely focused, spending hours cycling up steep country roads while others his age were hanging out with friends. His mother often said he was born to move faster than life itself. That speed, that hunger, turned him into a champion. By the time he was 24, Ethan had already secured 2 Olympic gold medals and broken national records that had stood untouched for decades. Sponsors adored him. Fans worshipped him. To the world, he was the perfect athlete, disciplined, polite, and untouchable. But behind the public glory, Ethan was beginning to fall apart. The pressure of maintaining perfection had started to eat away at him. Every headline, every interview, every sponsorship came with expectations he could no longer meet. When his father died unexpectedly of a heart attack, something in him cracked. The man who had first placed him on a bicycle was gone, and with him went Ethan's sense of balance. He tried to drown himself in training, pedaling harder each day as though he could ride fast enough to escape the grief that clung to him. His coach noticed the changes, the late-night rides, the unpredictable mood swings, the refusal to rest, but Ethan dismissed every concern. He told everyone he was fine, that he just needed space. In truth, he had grown addicted to the feeling of speed and isolation. The faster he went, the quieter his thoughts became. He started driving fast, too, finding the same rush behind the wheel of his sleek black Audi R8. Late at night, when the city was silent, he would race down empty highways until dawn. The hum of the engine replaced the roar of the crowd, and for a few fleeting moments, he felt free again. Those who knew him saw the warning signs. His social media posts became erratic, his public appearances less frequent, and his once warm personality distant and cold. Yet no one could imagine the extent of the storm building inside him. When rumors began to spread about doping in professional cycling, Ethan became uneasy. He had always prided himself on staying clean, but whispers of secret labs and advanced enhancement programs started circulating among athletes. Sponsors demanded more wins, more medals, more records. The sport that had once been his passion now felt like a trap. He found himself caught between loyalty to his team and his growing disgust with what he suspected was happening behind closed doors. Alone in his luxury apartment overlooking the city, Ethan stared at his gold medals one night, realizing they no longer felt like achievements, but heavy reminders of a life that had spun out of control. He wanted to escape it all, to be just another man on a quiet road again, without cameras, without pressure, without lies. But he didn't know how to stop the downward spiral that had already begun. The same drive that once made him great was now consuming him, pushing him toward a path that would soon destroy everything he had built. The night began like any other, calm and uneventful, with the city lights flickering across the dark horizon. Ethan had been pacing in his apartment for hours, unable to quiet the thoughts that buzzed through his head. The call from his manager earlier that day replayed over and over. His endorsement deal had been suspended after a story leaked online accusing him of using banned substances. The allegations weren't new, but this time they carried weight. An anonymous source had provided evidence linking him to a private lab involved in doping research. He knew the truth was far more complicated, but in the public eye, truth didn't matter. Once the media began to circle, his reputation would be gone. He grabbed his car keys without thinking and walked to the underground garage. The Audi sat gleaming under the fluorescent lights, spotless and silent, like it was waiting for him. The air was heavy with tension as he climbed in, the soft hum of the engine coming alive beneath his hands. He drove without direction, letting the road guide him, the city slowly disappearing behind him. The further he went, the faster he drove, his mind racing as fast as the car. Every headline, every betrayal, every moment of failure spun through his thoughts until all that remained was a dull roar in his ears. By the time he reached the open stretch of highway, he had pushed the car past 90 miles per hour. The dashboard lights blurred into a streak of red and white. He didn't notice the police cruiser parked behind a billboard until the sirens flashed in his rearview mirror. For a brief moment, he considered stopping. But then a single thought tore through him. What if it wasn't the police? What if it was them, the people behind the lab, the ones who had leaked his name to protect themselves? Panic gripped him so hard it felt like he couldn't breathe. His foot slammed down on the accelerator, and the engine screamed in response. The car surged forward, cutting through the cold night air at over 100 miles per hour. The patrol officer behind him radioed for backup as the chase began. Within minutes, additional units joined in, their flashing lights reflecting off the black surface of the Audi as it tore through empty intersections and narrow bridges. Helicopters were dispatched, and soon the entire pursuit was being tracked from above. The once celebrated Olympian was now the center of a breaking news story, his name flashing across television screens across the country. Inside the car, Ethan's heartbeat matched the rhythm of the engine. The world around him blurred, but his mind was crystal clear in one haunting realization. There was no turning back. He weaved between lanes, narrowly avoiding collisions, the speedometer climbing to 126 mph. The sound of sirens grew louder, echoing like ghosts in the night. He wasn't running from the police anymore. He was running from everything: his mistakes, his guilt, his name. For the first time, he wasn't a cyclist chasing victory. He was a man trying to outrun his past. When Ethan's car finally sputtered to a stop on a lonely stretch of highway outside the city, the roar of the chase faded into an eerie silence. The gas tank had run dry after nearly 30 minutes of relentless pursuit. Police vehicles surrounded him from all sides, headlights cutting through the darkness like spotlights. Helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights fixed on the sleek black Audi. For a long moment, no one moved. Officers shouted commands through loudspeakers, but Ethan sat motionless, his hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes staring blankly ahead. His chest rose and fell in uneven breaths, sweat glistening on his forehead. Everything around him felt distant, unreal, as if he were watching the chaos from outside his own body. When he finally opened the car door, he did so slowly, stepping out with trembling hands raised in surrender. Officers rushed in, pushing him to the ground, cuffing his wrists behind his back. The moment his face hit the asphalt, he caught the faint smell of burnt rubber and gasoline, mixed with the dry dust of the road. It was over. The champion who had once stood on podiums with the national anthem playing now lay face down under blinding police lights. The image would soon be broadcast across every news channel in the country. As investigators inspected the car, one officer noticed something unusual. The trunk was locked with an aftermarket security latch, a modification uncommon for standard vehicles. When they forced it open, what they found changed everything. Inside lay a black duffel bag, neatly packed and zipped. The contents were both shocking and confusing. Several unmarked glass vials, a small cooler with temperature controls, and a syringe kit. Alongside them were folders containing lab documents, handwritten notes, and a flash drive. Each vial was labeled with cryptic initials and numbers, suggesting they weren't simple medical supplies. Back at the station, the evidence was quickly tested. The results revealed that the vials contained advanced synthetic compounds, substances similar to banned performance-enhancing drugs, but with chemical structures the authorities had never seen before. They weren't just illegal, they were experimental. Within hours, the case shifted from reckless driving to something far more serious. News headlines exploded with speculation. Was Ethan Mallory caught trafficking illegal drugs? Was he secretly using them during his career? Or was he part of a deeper scandal hidden within professional sports? While the public speculated, investigators began to piece together Ethan's movements from the past several months. Financial records showed frequent payments to a private biomedical company with no public affiliations. Security footage later confirmed his visits to an unmarked facility outside San Diego. It became clear that whatever Ethan was involved in went beyond simple doping rumors. These were substances linked to a secretive research operation aiming to create stronger, faster athletes without detection. When Ethan was finally questioned, he remained silent, eyes vacant, refusing to explain why he had those vials or where they came from. To the world, it looked like guilt. But to those who studied the files, it seemed more complicated, as though Ethan had stumbled upon something dangerous, something that powerful people never wanted revealed. As the investigation unfolded, a far darker picture of Ethan Mallory's life began to emerge. Authorities discovered that the vials in his car were not for personal use, but evidence he had intended to deliver to federal investigators. Months before the chase, Ethan had quietly started gathering proof of illegal activities within the private labs that funded elite athletes. He had uncovered detailed records showing that multiple Olympic hopefuls were being given experimental compounds to enhance performance, bypassing all anti-doping controls. This was more than cheating. It was a highly organized network of scientists, coaches, and sponsors willing to risk careers, reputations, and even lives to create a new standard of athletic dominance. Ethan had attempted to expose the operation anonymously. He contacted investigative journalists, offering encrypted files and evidence, but the people behind the scheme moved faster. Somehow, his identity was revealed to the very organization he was trying to expose. His emails were traced, his phone tapped, and within weeks his sponsors withdrew their support. Public statements were released implying he had willingly participated in illegal activities. The backlash was swift. Headlines painted him as a disgraced athlete, and social media erupted with accusations. Ethan, once celebrated as a hero, was suddenly a target of suspicion, a symbol of betrayal in the sport he had devoted his life to. The night of the chase, investigators later determined, was the result of fear and panic rather than rebellion. Ethan had been on his way to meet a federal agent in a remote location to hand over the evidence he had collected. He had been meticulous, planning the meeting for weeks, but when he spotted the flashing lights of the patrol car behind him, his mind immediately assumed the worst. He thought the people he had been exposing had found him first and were now coming to stop him. In that split second, years of pressure, paranoia, and betrayal converged, and he chose flight over surrender. The chase itself, initially perceived as reckless and dangerous, became part of the narrative that complicated the case. Analysts later noted that Ethan's high-speed maneuvers were less about evading law enforcement and more about attempting to navigate roads he knew, instinctively searching for a way to survive the night. Every turn, every acceleration, every near miss was fueled by desperation and fear rather than malice. Police reports described the chase as one of the most extraordinary they had ever experienced, not only because of the speed, but because of the driver's familiarity with every twist and curve of the route, a cyclist's mind applied to a car. In the days that followed, the full scope of betrayal and corruption became clearer. Internal emails leaked from the lab confirmed that executives had orchestrated the smear campaign against Ethan, ensuring that no one would listen to him. His attempt to reveal the truth had backfired spectacularly, leaving him publicly vilified while the real criminals continued their operations. The revelation shocked sports communities worldwide. The man who had risked everything to protect the integrity of competition had been forced into hiding. And the chase that had captivated millions was now understood as a desperate act by a man cornered by forces far larger than himself. Ethan Mallory's arrest marked the end of the high-speed chase, but it was only the beginning of a long and complicated reckoning. In the days following, federal authorities began unraveling the network of corruption he had exposed. Interviews with scientists, coaches, and insiders revealed the full extent of the doping operation. The lab had been producing experimental compounds designed to enhance endurance, strength, and recovery in elite athletes, while evading all current detection methods. Entire Olympic teams from multiple countries had unknowingly been enrolled in these trials, and Ethan's evidence became the cornerstone of the investigation. Public opinion shifted as more details emerged. News outlets presented Ethan not as a criminal, but as a whistleblower trapped in a system he could not control. Footage of the chase, once seen as reckless behavior, was re-evaluated as a desperate flight by a man trying to survive long enough to deliver crucial evidence. Analysts praised his courage, noting that exposing the operation required immense personal risk. The very fame that had once made him a target now drew attention to the wrongdoing he had revealed, forcing authorities to act quickly to dismantle the lab before further damage could occur. Ethan faced multiple charges related to reckless driving, possession of controlled substances, and resisting law enforcement. In court, his defense emphasized his intent to expose illegal activities and protect the integrity of sports. While the legal process was grueling, the judge and jury were swayed by the overwhelming evidence of corruption and Ethan's role in uncovering it. His sentence was mitigated, and he received probation combined with community service and counseling. The ruling recognized that although the chase had endangered lives, Ethan's actions ultimately served a greater purpose by shining a light on a dangerous and secretive operation. After the trial, Ethan withdrew completely from the public eye. He purchased a secluded cabin in the mountains near the roads where he had once trained as a young cyclist. There, he rebuilt his life away from cameras, headlines, and social media. He trained privately, rode his bicycle along winding forest trails, and worked on personal projects that had nothing to do with competition. While the world watched him fade from fame, he found a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. The adrenaline, the pressure, and the constant scrutiny were gone, replaced by quiet mornings, the rustle of leaves, and the simple satisfaction of movement. Years later, stories began circulating among local cyclists and hikers. Some claimed to see a lone figure riding at incredible speeds along the mountain roads, moving with a precision and strength that seemed almost supernatural. Few knew it was Ethan Mallory, and he never confirmed the sightings. Those who did see him spoke of a man who seemed both present and distant, a reminder of past glory tempered by hardship and survival. Ethan's story became legend, not for the medals he had won or the records he had set, but for the courage it took to expose corruption, survive betrayal, and find a life worth living beyond fame. The Olympic cyclist who once raced for gold had ultimately raced for freedom, and in the quiet solitude of the mountains, he finally won.